The 1990s were a decade overflowing with optimism, promising the future in every new product. Before flops like Crystal Pepsi and Microsoft Bob, ambition without guardrails led to catastrophic failures. These 20 doomed products, some costing fortunes and others destroying careers, delivered the most expensive lessons in business history, showcasing the thin line between revolution and catastrophe. Crystal Pepsi, the clear misunderstanding. In 1992, executives at PepsiCo gazed into the future and saw something remarkable: a cola as pure and transparent as mountain spring water, a beverage that would revolutionize how America thought about soft drinks. They called it Crystal Pepsi, and for one brief, shining moment, it seemed destined to change everything. PepsiCo had built its reputation on bold experimentation and creative risk-taking. Born in the depths of the Great Depression, Pepsi had always positioned itself as the challenger brand, the scrappy underdog willing to take chances. By the early 1990s, that pioneering spirit remained deeply embedded in the company's culture. The cultural moment seemed perfect. Americans were becoming increasingly health-conscious, gravitating toward products that appeared pure and natural. Clear soaps promised transparency. Clear beer suggested refinement. Why not clear cola? If consumers associated clarity with purity, perhaps they would embrace a cola that looked as clean as spring water, while delivering the familiar taste they loved. The launch was spectacular. Van Halen's anthem "Right Now" thundered through television commercials, while slow-motion footage showed beautiful people doing extraordinary things, all bathed in crystalline light. The marketing promised a drink of the future. Initial curiosity was tremendous. Store shelves emptied as Americans rushed to experience this novel creation. But beneath the dazzling marketing lay a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. Crystal Pepsi faced a problem that no amount of advertising could overcome: cognitive dissonance. It looked like water, clear and pristine, yet tasted like cola, sweet and carbonated. The disconnect confused consumers. Some found themselves disappointed that it did not taste exactly like regular Pepsi. Others felt unsettled by the transparent appearance, their minds unable to reconcile what their eyes saw with what their taste buds experienced. The truth was painfully simple. People were not actually asking for transparent soda. PepsiCo had solved a problem that did not exist. Within 2 years, Crystal Pepsi quietly disappeared from store shelves. The company attempted a brief nostalgia-driven comeback in 2016, but even sentimentality could not save a product whose fundamental premise had been flawed. What haunts this story most is what this failure revealed about the delicate relationship between innovation and consumer desire. The executives who championed Crystal Pepsi were dreamers who genuinely believed they understood where American tastes were heading. They invested their careers, their reputations, and millions of dollars into this crystalline vision. When it failed, it cost not just money, but the livelihoods of workers and the confidence of believers. Today, every beverage aisle has clear seltzers and transparent teas. We learned to accept clarity, but it took 30 years and a complete category reset. Next, from silicon to sneakers, where basketball met bad science. Apple Newton, the prophet that stumbled. 1993. John Scully, former PepsiCo marketing prodigy turned Apple chief executive, unveils his boldest vision. He calls it Newton, a handheld device that will revolutionize computing. At nearly $700, it represents a substantial bet on technology that has never existed before. 1994. Early adopters struggle with Newton's most celebrated feature. The handwriting recognition is hilariously inaccurate. Users write simple words, watch them transform into incomprehensible gibberish. The Simpsons gently mocks it. Yet Apple persists, convinced the technology will improve. 1995 through 97. The Newton lingers in Apple's product line, neither succeeding nor completely failing. The device is bulky when it needs to be sleek, expensive when it needs to be affordable, unreliable when it needs to be flawless. Meanwhile, Apple is losing market share, bleeding money, searching for direction without Steve Jobs. 1998. Jobs returns to Apple. One of his first decisions is swift and final: discontinue the Newton. The device quietly disappears from the product line. The Newton development team scatters. 2007. Apple introduces the iPhone. Within that revolutionary device lives the DNA of what Newton attempted a decade earlier. Handheld computing, touch screens, digital assistants. The dreams that John Sculley and his engineers pursued were not wrong, merely premature. They were simply a decade too early, working with technology that had not yet caught up to their vision. The real tragedy was not the product. It was that many engineers who labored over Newton never witnessed how their impossible dreams became the foundation for a revolution that changed human civilization. They were prophets who glimpsed the promised land but could not enter it themselves. But inflated expectations were nothing compared to inflated promises in athletic footwear. Reebok Pump, inflated promises, $150. That's what parents paid in 1989 for sneakers with a basketball-shaped pump button that supposedly transformed their children into athletic superstars. 80% of those pumps broke within 6 months. 0% actually improved athletic performance. These numbers tell the story of one of sports marketing's most successful failures. The late 1980s witnessed an epic struggle between Nike and Reebok. Nike had dominated the basketball shoe market with its revolutionary Air Jordan line, transforming Michael Jordan into a global icon. Reebok found itself desperately seeking innovation that would capture the imagination of athletes and enthusiasts alike. The pump technology was ingenious in its simplicity. A small basketball-shaped button sat prominently on the tongue of the shoe. Press it repeatedly, and air would inflate chambers within the sneaker, supposedly creating a custom fit that provided superior support and performance enhancement. Athletes could be seen on courts across America, pausing before crucial moments to pump up their shoes, as if drawing superhuman power from the very footwear beneath them. The marketing campaign was masterful. Professional basketball players endorsed the technology with enthusiasm. Advertisements showed athletes performing extraordinary feats, their success seemingly linked to those few pumps of air. Young people imagined themselves transformed by the same technology that elite athletes trusted. The promise was intoxicating. Technological superiority you could see and feel. It appealed to something deeply American, the belief that innovation could provide shortcuts to excellence. But beneath the compelling marketing lay a more complicated reality. The pump mechanism offered minimal, actual performance benefit. Serious athletes quickly recognized that proper technique, conditioning, and practice mattered far more than a few pumps of air. Moreover, the pump mechanism frequently broke under the stress of regular use, leaving owners with expensive shoes that no longer performed their signature function. The pump sold respectably during its initial years, but never revolutionized athletic performance as promised. Instead, it gradually faded from prominence, becoming more remembered for its novelty than its actual contribution. Today, the pump exists primarily as a nostalgic curiosity, a reminder of an era when we believed that visible technology could make us superhuman. From virtual disasters to very real headaches. Nintendo Virtual Boy, red-tinted regret. This next story takes a darker turn, discussing professional setbacks and loss. Nintendo, the company that had brought joy to millions with the Game Boy and Super Nintendo, looked toward the future in 1995 and saw virtual reality. The Virtual Boy was their answer, a bold leap into three-dimensional gaming that would either revolutionize entertainment or give you a splitting headache. Unfortunately, it chose the latter. The visionary behind this ambitious project was Gunpei Yokoi, one of Nintendo's most respected engineers. Yokoi had already transformed the company once before with the Game Boy. His track record was impeccable. When he spoke of creating immersive three-dimensional gaming experiences, Nintendo executives listened with the respect his previous successes had earned. Nintendo in the mid-1990s was a company under tremendous pressure. Sony was preparing to enter the market with their PlayStation. Sega continued to challenge Nintendo's supremacy. The Virtual Boy represented that ambition, a device so far ahead of its time that it would supposedly render all competing systems obsolete. The reality was far removed from these lofty aspirations. The Virtual Boy required users to position their faces against a headset mounted on a small tripod, peering into eyepieces that displayed games in stark red and black. There was no color, no portability, and certainly no comfort. Players found themselves hunched over this peculiar contraption, their necks aching and their eyes straining. The technical limitations were severe. The red and black color scheme gave many users persistent headaches. Some experienced nausea. Nintendo included health warnings with the device, an acknowledgement that even the company recognized the potential discomfort. At its launch, the Virtual Boy cost approximately $180 for a device with a severely limited game library. Only 22 games were ever released for the system. Nintendo discontinued the Virtual Boy after only 6 months, one of the shortest lifespans of any major gaming console in history. For Gunpei Yokoi, the Virtual Boy's failure represented a profound professional setback. He would later leave Nintendo and tragically lose his life in a car accident in 1997, never witnessing how his dreams of virtual reality would eventually be realized by future generations. The lesson that endured was this: being ahead of your time can be just as damaging as being behind it. Yokoi's vision was not wrong, but in 1995, the technology simply did not exist to make that vision comfortable, affordable, or compelling. From brand confusion to a very real brand crisis. Still ahead, a toy without an off switch that terrorized parents, a speculative bubble that destroyed retirement funds, and a polite butler who could not survive Google. But first, what happens when a beer company tries to sell water? Coors Rocky Mountain Sparkling Water. Brand identity crisis. Gentlemen, what if we took our legendary Rocky Mountain spring water, the very essence we've marketed for decades, and bottled it by itself? The Coors executive leaned forward in the boardroom, confident this diversification strategy was brilliant. Shareholders would applaud their health-conscious pivot. Consumers would embrace water from a trusted source. Spoiler, they would not. When the Coors Brewing Company decided to diversify beyond beer in the early 1990s, they gazed at their pristine Rocky Mountain water source and saw opportunity. What they failed to see was how deeply their brand had become synonymous with one thing: cold beer on a hot day. The strategy made perfect sense on paper. Coors had spent decades marketing the purity of their Rocky Mountain spring water. Meanwhile, America was experiencing a cultural shift toward health consciousness. Bottled water sales were climbing steadily. Coors executives believed they possessed a unique advantage. While other beverage companies would need to convince consumers of their water's quality, Coors already had that story built into their brand identity. What Coors had not adequately considered was the deeply ingrained psychological association consumers had formed over decades of advertising. When people saw the Coors name, their minds immediately conjured specific images: football games and backyard barbecues, frosty bottles and social gatherings, the taste of beer. These associations were so thoroughly embedded that they could not be easily redirected toward a completely different beverage category. Consumers approached Coors Rocky Mountain Sparkling Water with profound confusion. Some wondered if it contained traces of alcohol. Others questioned why a beer company believed it could produce quality water. The trust that Coors had built over generations worked against them. People trusted Coors to make beer, and that very trust made them skeptical of Coors making anything else. The failure was swift. Store shelves remained stocked as consumers passed by without interest. Within a relatively short period, Coors quietly withdrew their sparkling water, acknowledging that some brand extensions bridged too great a distance. Beneath the commercial disaster lay a deeper truth. Consumers possess remarkably sensitive instincts for detecting when brands venture too far from their core identity. Coors made excellent beer using Rocky Mountain spring water, but that did not automatically qualify them to sell that water independently. The magic existed in the combination, not in the components separated. If brand water confusion was not enough, try textural confusion. Orbits, the lava lamp you could drink. It had floating balls. It looked like a lava lamp, and it was, somehow, legally classified as a beverage. Orbits was not just the strangest drink of the 1990s. It was possibly the strangest drink ever created. The 1990s witnessed a cultural fascination with futurism. Everything embraced sleek, transparent designs that suggested a high-tech tomorrow. Clear telephones allow you to see their internal mechanisms. Translucent electronics revealed circuit boards within. There was something about clarity that seemed to represent progress and sophistication. Remember Crystal Pepsi's obsession with clarity? Orbits took that transparent delusion even further, adding floating gelatin spheres that defied both physics and good taste. The Clearly Food and Beverage Company of Canada created Orbits as the ultimate expression of this futuristic aesthetic. The drink came in various flavors, each featuring distinctive gelatin spheres, floating mysteriously within the liquid. When you held a bottle up to the light, it genuinely looked extraordinary. The marketing emphasized a texturally enhanced beverage experience, suggesting innovation unlike anything consumers had encountered before. The problem revealed itself the moment consumers opened the bottle and took their first sip. The taste was peculiar, and not in a pleasant way, but the real issue was the texture. Those floating gelatin balls created a deeply unsettling sensation in the mouth. What they delivered felt more like drinking and chewing simultaneously, a combination that most people found profoundly disturbing. The gelatin balls had an unpleasant way of catching in the throat, or requiring unexpected chewing. The entire experience contradicted fundamental expectations about what drinking should feel like. The novelty wore off with remarkable speed. People who purchased Orbits out of curiosity rarely purchased it again. The visual spectacle became irrelevant once consumers realized that looking at the product was far more enjoyable than actually consuming it. Orbits was discontinued almost as quickly as it had appeared. Today, Orbits is remembered as a strange footnote in beverage history that people recall with a mixture of nostalgia and mild revulsion. History remembers this failure for one unshakable truth: innovation must serve substance, not merely style. These stories of ambition and miscalculation remind us that innovation requires courage, even when it leads to failure. If you are enjoying this journey through the 1990s most fascinating missteps, subscribe to ensure you never miss another chapter in the story of how bold dreams sometimes end in broken promises. Because what's coming next makes transparent drinks look tame. A format war Sony could not win. A cigarette that smelled like burning plastic, and software that treated adults like children. Speaking of formats that confuse everyone, Sony Mini Disc, the format that time forgot. Sony envisioned a future where mini discs would replace both cassettes and CDs, a sleek, rewritable format for the modern age. The technology was sound, the quality impeccable, but timing and economics conspired to relegate this once promising format to the dustbin of obsolete media. Sony had experienced both triumph and tragedy in creating new formats. The most painful was Betamax, a video format that was technically superior to VHS, yet lost the format war spectacularly in the 1980s. When they introduced the mini disc in 1992, they believed they had learned from past mistakes. The mini disc itself was genuinely impressive. These small square discs offered something remarkable. You could record and re-record without any degradation in sound quality. Unlike cassette tapes, which wore down with each use, mini discs maintained pristine audio fidelity. Sony invested heavily in promoting this new format, particularly in Japan. Japanese consumers embraced mini discs with genuine affection. The format became surprisingly popular there, used by everyone from students recording lectures to musicians creating demos. But outside Japan, particularly in America and Europe, the mini disc faced insurmountable obstacles. Both the players and the discs themselves were expensive, significantly more costly than the cassettes they were meant to replace. Compact discs, meanwhile, were becoming increasingly affordable. More devastating was the emergence of MP3 players. By the late 1990s, digital audiophiles were beginning to change how people thought about music entirely. Why carry physical discs when you could store hundreds of songs in a device smaller than a deck of cards? The mini disc suddenly felt outdated before it had even established itself. Sony continued supporting the format far longer than market realities justified, but eventually even Sony acknowledged defeat. The mini disc was quietly discontinued. Today, Mini discs live on primarily in the collections of audio enthusiasts who appreciate the format's elegant engineering. Sony's format struggles seem quaint now. In an era where we do not own music at all, we stream it. Mini disc warned us. Ownership itself might become obsolete. The mini disc's failure teaches us something profound. Sometimes being better is not enough. Sometimes arriving at the wrong moment in history dooms even the most well-engineered technology. Sony's format failed, but at least it did not smell like burning plastic. R.J. Reynolds' Premiere, the smokeless disaster, $1 billion. That's what R.J. Reynolds spent perfecting a cigarette that tasted like burning plastic and made smokers gag on the first puff. By the time they discontinued it 12 months later, they had created one of tobacco's most expensive cautionary tales. 1986, R.J. Reynolds research scientists begin developing revolutionary smokeless cigarette technology. They envision a heated carbon element releasing nicotine vapor without traditional combustion. The tobacco industry's existential crisis might finally have a solution. 1987 through 88. Development costs climb. Over $1 billion pours into research, testing, and preparation. Production facilities are built. Marketing campaigns are crafted. Premiere represents the future of tobacco products. 1989. Launch. Test markets in Tucson and St. Louis. The reaction is immediate and catastrophic. Smokers try one puff and recoil in disgust. The taste is abhorrent, but worse is the smell, consistently described as burning plastic, chemical fumes, industrial waste. Even dedicated smokers find Premiere intolerable. 1990. Discontinuation. Within 12 months, Premiere vanished from shelves. The billion-dollar investment yields nothing but proof that some problems cannot be solved through half measures. 2010s and beyond, modern vaping technology emerges using principles remarkably similar to Premiere's heated element concept. The vision was not wrong. The execution was simply 30 years premature. The Premiere tasted like burning plastic. Modern vapes do not, but the fundamental promise, nicotine without combustion's harm, finally found its market. R.J. Reynolds' vision was right. Their execution was 3 decades early. The failure taught a harsh lesson. Innovation must not only solve problems, but must do so in ways that people actually want to experience. From hardware disasters to software embarrassments, Microsoft Bob, the helpful assistant nobody wanted. 50 megabytes of RAM. That's what Microsoft Bob demanded from 1995 home computers, when most owners had only 8 or 16 megabytes total. 99% of reviewers mocked it. 100% of Bill Gates' later interviews admitted it was a mistake. In the early 1990s, personal computers were transitioning from specialized business tools to household necessities. The traditional computer interface, with its cryptic commands and nested folders, intimidated countless potential users. Microsoft envisioned an interface so friendly that even the most technologically anxious person would feel comfortable. Rather than folders represented by small yellow icons, users would navigate through rooms in a cheerful cartoon house. Instead of cryptic error messages, a friendly dog named Rover would offer gentle guidance. The result was simultaneously ambitious and misguided. When users launched Microsoft Bob, they found themselves in a virtual living room decorated with bright, primary colors. Rover, an animated yellow dog with oversized eyes, bounded across the screen, offering assistance. The problems became apparent almost immediately. Most adults found the interface not helpful, but condescending, as if the software assumed they possessed the cognitive capacity of young children. The cartoon house metaphor actually made simple tasks more complicated. More practically, Microsoft Bob demanded considerable processing power. Many home computers struggled to run the software smoothly, creating frustrating delays. Even Bill Gates eventually acknowledged that Bob had missed its mark. The software became one of the most ridiculed technology products of the decade. Microsoft quietly discontinued Bob. The company learned that making technology accessible did not mean infantilizing users. Today, Microsoft Bob serves as a cautionary tale about the delicate balance between accessibility and condescension. Microsoft tried cartoon dogs. Pepsi tried something even stranger. Pepsi AM, Morning Cola Blues. Pepsi executives asked a simple question: why does morning belong to coffee? By the time they'd learned the answer, Pepsi AM had already vanished from shelves, taking millions in investment with it. PepsiCo in the late 1980s was perpetually searching for new frontiers. One strategy that particularly intrigued executives was expanding consumption occasions. Most Americans drank cola in the afternoon or evening, but morning remained unconquered territory, dominated entirely by coffee, tea, and juice. The logic seemed reasonable from a purely functional perspective. Coffee's primary appeal was its caffeine content. Pepsi AM offered that same caffeine boost, actually containing more caffeine than regular Pepsi. What PepsiCo failed to appreciate was how deeply ritual and cultural association influenced beverage choices. Morning coffee was not simply a caffeine delivery system. It represented comfort, warmth, and the gentle transition into the day's responsibilities. The aroma of brewing coffee signaled morning in ways that transcended mere function. More fundamentally, drinking cola at breakfast simply felt wrong to most Americans. Soda belonged to afternoons and evenings. The sweetness that felt refreshing at lunch seemed excessive and almost unsettling at breakfast. The cultural barrier proved insurmountable. Pepsi AM appeared briefly in test markets, was met with indifference, and disappeared almost as quickly as it had arrived. The failure taught valuable lessons. Some consumption patterns are too deeply rooted in culture to be easily redirected. The time of day when people consume products matters profoundly. Pepsi AM stands today as one of PepsiCo's strangest experiments. One morning, disaster leads to another. These next failures cost something more valuable than money. They cost people their livelihoods, their confidence, their dignity. The stakes are rising. We've now witnessed half of the 1990s most spectacular failures. The second half grows darker. Products that affect health, dignity, and family finances. Coming up, bathroom emergencies, stained furniture, sleepless nights, and a bubble that destroyed retirement dreams. Coke 2, the formula they could not fix. Perhaps a Coca-Cola executive ventured in a 1992 strategy meeting. Perhaps consumers have moved past the new Coke trauma. Perhaps if we reintroduce that sweeter formula quietly, as a choice rather than a replacement, they'll give it a fair chance. The room fell silent. 7 years had passed since the new Coke catastrophe. Surely 7 years was enough time for wounds to heal. It was not. In April of 1985, Coca-Cola made a decision that would haunt the company for decades. They changed their secret formula, a recipe that had remained essentially unchanged since 1886. They reformulated their beloved cola to taste sweeter, more similar to Pepsi. The backlash was immediate and fierce. The outcry was so intense that Coca-Cola reversed course within just 79 days, bringing back the original formula as Coca-Cola Classic. Yet Coca-Cola found themselves in a peculiar position. They still believed the formula itself was not the problem. Perhaps, they reasoned, if they reintroduced the sweeter formula more quietly, people might actually appreciate having the choice. Thus was born Coke 2 in 1992. This time, there was no grand announcement. Coca-Cola Classic would remain the flagship product. Coke 2 would simply be offered as an alternative. The strategy failed completely. Consumers were not interested in alternatives when it came to Coca-Cola. They wanted exactly what they had always wanted, the original formula. Store shelves remained perpetually stocked with Coke 2 because nobody was buying it. The fundamental problem remained unchanged. Coca-Cola was not simply a beverage. It was a cultural institution. People did not want Coca-Cola improved or modernized or sweetened. They wanted Coca-Cola to taste exactly as their grandparents remembered it. The continuity mattered profoundly. Within months, Coca-Cola quietly began phasing out Coke 2. The product disappeared without ceremony. Another expensive lesson about the power of nostalgia. The Coke 2 failure revealed something profound. When people love something, they often do not want it improved. They want it preserved exactly as it is. Coca-Cola had learned this lesson twice, paying dearly both times. When Coke could not fix their formula, McDonald's thought they could fix their identity. McDonald's Arch Deluxe, the gourmet gamble. Picture Ronald McDonald in a smoky pool hall, cue stick in hand, decidedly adult surroundings replacing playground equipment. Picture him on a golf course at a country club, far from Happy Meal boxes. This was McDonald's $100 million vision for reinvention. This was the Arch Deluxe campaign, and it confused everyone. In the mid-1990s, McDonald's occupied a peculiar position. The company had become so successful at serving families and children that they had almost become prisoners of that success. Yet executives worried they had become too narrowly defined. Market research suggested that young, affluent adults rarely chose McDonald's. The Arch Deluxe represented their answer. The potato roll was bakery quality. Peppered bacon added a gourmet touch. The special mustard mayo sauce suggested culinary sophistication. McDonald's supported this with one of the largest advertising campaigns in the company's history. Over $100 million were spent crafting commercials that explicitly targeted adults. The advertisements showed children expressing disgust at this grown-up burger. Ronald McDonald appeared in commercials engaging in decidedly adult activities, like playing pool in smoky bars. The fundamental problem revealed itself immediately. McDonald's core customers found themselves confused. The marketing explicitly told children this burger was not for them. Meanwhile, the adults McDonald's hoped to attract remained skeptical. The Arch Deluxe still cost roughly twice what a regular burger cost. The sophisticated adults McDonald's courted were not convinced that premium ingredients could transform fast food into fine dining. The Arch Deluxe occupied an uncomfortable middle ground. Too expensive for McDonald's traditional customers, not impressive enough for the sophisticated diners it hoped to attract. Restaurant traffic barely increased despite the massive marketing investment. By 2000, McDonald's quietly retired it. If McDonald's learned that burger joints should not chase sophistication, Harley-Davidson was about to learn that motorcycle makers should not chase fragrance markets. The Arch Deluxe teaches a valuable lesson about identity. Attempting to suddenly become something different feels inauthentic, no matter how well executed the product itself might have been. From misguided burgers to even more misguided fragrances. Harley-Davidson perfume, the scent of misguided ambition. In 1995, the legendary Harley-Davidson motorcycle company looked beyond the open road and saw an opportunity. If they could bottle the essence of freedom, leather, and rebellion, surely their devoted fans would wear it proudly. The resulting fragrance proved that some brand extensions are better left unattempted. Harley-Davidson occupied a unique position in American culture. More than a motorcycle manufacturer, they had become a lifestyle brand, representing independence, ruggedness, and defiance of convention. Their devotees were famously loyal. The perfume arrived in sleek metallic bottles. The fragrance itself featured notes of tobacco and sandalwood, scents meant to suggest leather, the open road, and masculine adventure. The fundamental disconnect became apparent immediately. Harley-Davidson represented raw, visceral experience, the roar of powerful engines, wind in your face, the vibration of the machine beneath you. Perfume represented refinement, subtlety, and social grace. These concepts existed in such different realms that bringing them together created uncomfortable dissonance. Devoted Harley-Davidson fans largely rejected the perfume. Many found the entire concept embarrassing. They wore Harley-Davidson leather because it was functional and represented authentic connection to motorcycle culture. Wearing Harley-Davidson perfume felt like posing. Those outside Harley-Davidson's core community showed even less interest. Fragrance enthusiasts dismissed it as a novelty item. Retailers quickly relegated Harley-Davidson perfume to clearance racks, where it languished at increasingly desperate discounts before being discontinued. The failure revealed something important. Customers possess remarkably sensitive instincts for detecting when brands venture into territories that feel incongruent with their essential character. At least perfume was voluntary. Our next product promised miracles. We've now seen 3 clear beverages fail: Crystal Pepsi, Orbitz, and now we'll witness Zima's cloudy future. The 1990s never learned that transparency does not equal trust. Perhaps you remember some of these products from your own past. A bottle of Orbitz gathering dust in your refrigerator, or an Arch Deluxe that promised sophistication but delivered disappointment. Share your memories in the comments below. Which of these 1990s failures did you experience firsthand? We would love to hear your stories, because what comes next affects something far more personal: appearance, dignity, and bodily functions. GLH, spray-on hair, follicular fiction. The infomercial promised dignity. The product delivered chalky scalps, stained pillowcases, and late-night comedy mockery. This is the story of spray-on hair and the desperation that made millions willing to try it. 1994. Late-night infomercials introduce GLH, great-looking hair. Under controlled studio lighting, the demonstrations look convincing. Men with visible scalps spray aerosol fibers and suddenly appear to have full coverage. The promise is irresistible: instant fullness without procedures. 1995 through 96. Sales climb as millions of Americans battling hair loss order GLH cans. The profound anxiety that hair loss creates drives desperate purchases. Hair carries symbolic weight: youth, vitality, attractiveness. Reality arrives with the first real-world application. The spray-on hair appears exactly as it is: colored powder clinging desperately to the scalp. Coverage is uneven. Patches look chalky and artificial. Worse are the practical consequences. Powdery substance transfers easily to pillowcases, leaving colorful stains. Shower curtains bear telltale marks. Clothing collars show discoloration. Rain or perspiration causes the product to run, creating embarrassing streaks. Health concerns add another dimension. Medical professionals question the safety of repeatedly inhaling aerosolized particles near the face. 1997 through 99. Late-night television comedians mock spray-on hair. The product becomes symbolic of desperate attempts to deny reality. This mockery is particularly cruel because it targets people already struggling with appearance insecurity. By decade's end, spray-on hair has been largely relegated to novelty bins. The product that promised dignity became associated with embarrassment instead. The real tragedy was recognizing the genuine need this product attempted to address. Hair loss affects millions. GLH, spray-on hair, failed not because the problem was unimportant, but because its solution was inadequate. From cosmetic desperation to dietary desperation. Wow Chips, the snack that backfired. $347 million. That's what Frito-Lay earned in Wow Chips' first year. $200 million. That's what they earned in year 2, after bathroom horror stories spread. $0. That's what they made after discontinuing the product in 2004. The 1990s was an era obsessed with reducing dietary fat. Food manufacturers raced to create fat-free versions of beloved products. The prevailing wisdom held that if a food contained no fat, you could eat it guilt-free. Frito-Lay saw an opportunity. Their research scientists developed Olestra, marketed as Olein, a remarkable fat substitute molecule. Olestra was ingeniously designed, too large for the human digestive system to break down and absorb. It provided the taste and texture of fat, but passed through the body without contributing calories. The launch was spectacular. Wow Chips tasted remarkably similar to regular Lay's potato chips. During their first year, Wow Chips generated $347 million in sales. But Olestra's inability to be absorbed by the digestive system created unexpected consequences. The molecule slipped through the digestive tract, causing what medical professionals delicately termed gastrointestinal urgency. People found themselves making hurried, often embarrassingly public, trips to restrooms. The testimonials spread. People warned friends and family about Wow Chips. What had been marketed as a guilt-free indulgence became associated with digestive distress and social embarrassment. Sales plummeted dramatically. The Food and Drug Administration required warning labels on products containing Olestra. These labels essentially advertised the very problem Frito-Lay was desperately trying to downplay. By 2004, Frito-Lay had quietly discontinued Wow chips. Olestra failed, but America's obsession with eating without consequences did not. Every diet trend, every guilt-free label, proves we still want Wow chips' impossible promise. The failure taught important lessons. Our digestive systems evolved over millions of years to process actual nutrients. After digestive disasters, creative disasters. Blow pens, the art project parents dreaded. Blow pens promised to turn every child into a budding artist, creating vibrant designs by blowing ink through airbrush-style wands onto stencils. Advertisements showed crisp, colorful results with minimal mess. Parents soon discovered a very different reality. The 1990s witnessed a flowering of creative toys designed to unlock children's artistic potential. Parents, eager to nurture their children's talents, often purchased these items with genuine optimism. Blow pens arrived with considerable fanfare. Children would position plastic stencils over paper, then blow through specially designed pens that would spray fine mists of colored ink. The advertisements showed children creating elaborate artwork that looked genuinely impressive. The reality diverged dramatically. The ink did not spray in controlled, even mists. Instead, it sputtered unpredictably, sometimes coming out in concentrated blobs. Other times, barely any ink emerged, despite vigorous blowing. More problematic was the fine mist that the pens did produce. This mist did not confine itself politely to the paper. It drifted across tables, settled on walls, and found its way onto furniture and clothing. What had been advertised as a contained art activity became an exercise in unintentional interior redecorating. Children struggled with frustration. The beautiful designs they had seen in advertisements remained stubbornly out of reach. Their attempts resulted in blotchy, uneven artwork. The gap between expectation and result was vast enough to discourage many young artists entirely. Health concerns added another dimension. The act of blowing forcefully through these pens meant children were positioned directly above clouds of aerosolized pigment. The novelty fizzled rapidly amidst mounting cleanup grievances. Retailers dropped to blow pens from their shelves. Blow pens stained surfaces. Furby stained childhoods. Furby, the toy that would not sleep. Time for a palate cleanser after all that tragedy. This next story is simply absurd. Picture a parent at 2:47 in the morning, screwdriver in hand, desperately trying to pry open a battery compartment. From somewhere in the darkness, electronic chirping continues. The child sleeps peacefully. The parent does not. This was life with Furby, the toy that sold 40 million units and traumatized an entire generation of exhausted adults. When Furby debuted in 1998, its chirps, chatters, and eerily expressive eyes made it the season's hottest toy. Children adored it. Parents, awakened at 3 o'clock in the morning by its uninvited serenades, felt very differently. Furby represented the pinnacle of electronic toy evolution. It was not simply a stuffed animal with pre-recorded phrases. It learned and adapted, developing vocabulary over time, creating the illusion of genuine connection. The design was both ingenious and slightly unsettling. Furby's large, expressive eyes blinked and moved. For children, particularly those who longed for pets, Furby offered something remarkably close, a companion that seemed alive. The toy became a cultural phenomenon almost overnight. Store shelves emptied as quickly as they could be restocked. But parents began discovering a fundamental design flaw. Furby had no off switch. The toy's creators believed that an off switch would break the illusion of Furby being a living creature. This decision created practical nightmares for families. Furbies would awaken randomly throughout the night, triggered by ambient sounds or vibrations. A sleeping household would be shattered by electronic chirping at 2 in the morning. Just as everyone drifted back to sleep, Furby might awaken again at 4. Parents discovered that the only method for silencing Furby involved removing its batteries, a process requiring small screwdrivers. Many households engaged in a delicate dance, removing batteries when children were asleep, then desperately reinstalling them before the children returned. Despite these frustrations, Furby earned a permanent place in toy history. Children who grew up with Furbies remember them with genuine affection. Parents remember frantic midnight battery removals and peculiar exhaustion. When Hasbro revived Furby in 2023, they had learned from past mistakes. The new version included a proper power button. From toys that refused to sleep to drinks nobody could take seriously, 3 chapters remain. We've witnessed expensive mistakes and human costs. Now we reach systemic collapse. Failures that revealed fractures in entire economic and technological systems. Coming up, a speculative bubble that destroyed families, and a search engine that courtesy could not save. Zima, clear beer's cloudy future. Strip away the color, a Coors beverage scientist proposed in 1992. Add lemon-lime flavoring. Make it clear like water, light like a wine cooler, but with malt's substance. Young adults, especially women, will love it. Initial trial rates suggested he was right. 7 in 10 Americans tried Zima. What he failed to predict was what happened after that first sip. In 1993, Coors introduced Zima, a clear malt beverage. 7 in 10 Americans gave it a try. Yet the novelty wore thin as drinkers described it as beer's bland cousin with a citrus twist. We've now seen 3 clear beverages fail: Crystal Pepsi, Orbitz, and now Zima. The 1990s never learned that transparency does not equal trust. The product development was technically impressive. Creating a clear malt beverage required stripping away everything that gave beer its characteristic amber color and robust flavor. The resulting beverage was unlike anything most Americans had encountered. The launch generated remarkable curiosity. Young adults rushed to try it. The initial trial rates were extraordinary, but trial rates tell only part of the story. After the initial curiosity was satisfied, consumers evaluated Zima on its own merits. Many found the taste unremarkable, neither satisfying as beer nor appealing as a flavored beverage. The marketing struggled to position Zima coherently. Was it beer for people who did not like beer? A sophisticated alternative to wine coolers? The confusion reflected consumers' uncertainty about when and why they would choose it. Sales plummeted within a few years, but by 2008, Zima was discontinued in the United States. Yet Zima's story contains an interesting postscript. Many beverage industry analysts credit Zima with paving the way for today's booming hard seltzer market. The concept was not wrong. Zima simply arrived too early. The lesson is valuable. Even failures can leave lasting legacies. Future entrepreneurs learned from Coors' mistakes, creating products that refined and improved upon Zima's basic premise. Zima's bubble fizzled, but another bubble was about to burst. The final failures were not just products gone wrong. They were entire systems, economic, cultural, technological, revealing their fractures. These stories changed how we understand value, speculation, and the internet itself. Beanie Babies, the bubble that burst. At first glance, Beanie Babies looked like harmless plush companions, tiny, collectible, and adorably stitched. But behind the cuddly facade lurked a masterclass in artificial scarcity that would eventually leave speculators holding worthless treasures. Beanie Babies emerged in 1993 from the imagination of Ty Warner, an eccentric toy designer who understood human psychology with remarkable precision. He recognized that scarcity drove desire far more effectively than abundance. The Beanie Babies themselves were deceptively simple. These small stuffed animals cost only a few dollars each. Nothing about their construction suggested they would become anything more than pleasant, affordable toys. Warner's genius lay in how he managed their availability. He would introduce new designs regularly. Then, seemingly on whim, he would abruptly retire certain designs, announcing that those particular animals would never be produced again. What had been a $5 toy became a sought-after treasure the moment Warner declared it retired. The secondary market exploded. Certain retired designs commanded extraordinary prices. Some rare beanies sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Speculators entered the market. Adults filled entire rooms with Beanie Babies, treating them as investments rather than toys. The phenomenon crossed from collecting into outright mania. People refinanced homes to purchase Beanie Babies. Marriages strained under the financial pressure. Some individuals spent tens of thousands of dollars acquiring what they believed were valuable investments. Then in 1999, Warner made a shocking announcement. He was retiring the entire Beanie Baby line. No warning, The bubble burst immediately and catastrophically. The secondary market collapsed. Prices plummeted. The bears and elephants that had commanded hundreds of dollars suddenly could not find buyers at any price. Speculators faced devastating losses. People who had invested life savings discovered their collections were essentially worthless. But their value had never resided in the toys themselves. It existed only in the collective belief that they were rare and desirable, a belief that evaporated the moment Warner ended production. Warner himself faced consequences years later. In 2013, he pled guilty to tax evasion, NFTs, cryptocurrency, sneaker speculation. The Beanie Baby bubble taught us nothing. Every generation needs to learn that artificial scarcity is still artificial, even when it is digital. Today, Beanie Babies serve as cautionary tales about speculation and the difference between genuine value and manufactured desire. From speculative mania to technological obsolescence, our final cautionary tale. Ask Jeeves, the butler who could not keep up. In 1996, the internet was still finding its voice, and Ask Jeeves arrived with a revolutionary promise. You could ask questions in plain English, and a digital butler would find your answers. No keywords, no Boolean logic, just natural conversation. It was elegant, intuitive, and ultimately no match for a scrappy startup called Google. The mid-1990s internet was a chaotic frontier. The World Wide Web was expanding rapidly. Early search engines required users to think like computers, constructing queries with precise keywords. The process felt technical and unwelcoming. Jeeves proposed a more civilized approach. The service featured a cartoon mascot, a dignified gentleman in formal attire. You could type questions exactly as you would ask another person. Jeeves would interpret your query and present relevant answers. The concept captured imaginations immediately. Ask Jeeves represented the internet that people wanted: friendly, accessible, and designed for humans rather than programmers. The mascot became so recognizable that Ask Jeeves created a balloon for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. The early success seemed to validate the natural language approach. The company went public, and investors believed they had found the search engine that would dominate the internet's future. But as technology evolved rapidly, Ask Jeeves's limitations became increasingly apparent. Jeeves often interpreted questions too literally, missing the actual intent. The results frequently missed the mark. Meanwhile, two Stanford graduate students named Larry Page and Sergey Brin were developing a different approach. Their search engine, Google, abandoned politeness in favor of brutal efficiency. Google analyzed the relationships between websites, ranking results based on which pages other pages considered important. This produced remarkably relevant results with astonishing speed. Google's interface was stark, just a simple text box and a search button. No friendly butler, no elaborate explanations. Yet it worked brilliantly. Users discovered that typing a few relevant words into Google produced better results faster than asking elaborate questions of Jeeves. By the mid-2000s, the outcome was clear. Google has become the verb people use for internet searching. Jeeves could not compete. The company jettisoned its beloved butler mascot and rebranded as simply Ask.com. Without Jeeves, the service lost its distinctive identity. Ask Jeeves teaches us that innovation requires more than clever concepts. Superior technology ultimately trumps superior manners. Users valued results over courtesy, speed over friendliness. The polite butler could not survive in an environment where ruthless efficiency determined success. If someone you knew lost money on Beanie Babies, or if you did, share this video with them. They need to know they are not alone. And if you remember frantically searching for information on Ask Jeeves while your friends had already moved to Google, share those memories too, because these stories belong to all of us who lived through the decade when the future looked very different than it does today. From transparent cola to digital butlers, from inflatable shoes to chattering toys, these 20 stories remind us that the path to progress is never straight. Behind every failure stood dreamers who believed they could change the world. Crystal Pepsi taught us that solving problems nobody has leads nowhere, Apple Newton showed us that being a decade too early is indistinguishable from being wrong. Virtual Boy proved that vision without comfort is just headaches. Coors Water demonstrated that brand identity cannot be redirected at will. Orbitz reminded us that aesthetics must serve substance. Sony Mini Disc revealed that superior technology needs perfect timing. R.J. Reynolds Premiere proved that 30 years early might as well be never. Microsoft Bob taught us that help without respect is condescension. Pepsi AM showed that cultural rituals resist logical arguments. Coke 2 confirmed that some things are too sacred to change twice. McDonald's Arch Deluxe proved that you cannot abandon your identity without losing yourself. Harley Perfume demonstrated that some brand extensions are too far to bridge. Spray on Hair taught us that desperation equals human vulnerability. Wow Chips showed us that nature resists manipulation. Blow Pens reminded us that advertisements can mislead. Furby proved that philosophical purity must yield to practical reality. Zima demonstrated that even failures can pioneer future successes. Beanie Babies exposed how collective delusion creates and destroys value. And Ask Jeeves taught us that courtesy cannot compete with ruthless efficiency. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the 1990s most fascinating misfires. May we all approach our own endeavors with similar courage, learning from these missteps while honoring the audacity it takes to dream of better tomorrows.